If you are hearing this, you have once again tuned in the Consequence of Habit podcast. This is your host, JT. I am pumped about this episode. This week, I'm joined by Mr. Wes Hurt. Wes is the founder of CoH Beverage. And if you don't know what they are, well, one, I hope you find out in this podcast, but two, I encourage you to check these guys out. See what they're doing. I mean, you want to talk about the epitome of impact investment? These guys are changing the game. Wes is a self-proclaimed drug addict, alcoholic, but that doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter. What matters is what he and his team at CoH are doing. It's a beverage company. They're selling these caffeinated drinks, and 50% of all the profits goes to help people in recovery. Now, I'm not an expert in business, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that giving away 50% of your profits is not a model most entrepreneurs follow, but it's been successful. I mean, these guys are the living embodiment of impact investment. They are providing a service, and at the same time helping the community become better. You know, this guy when I talk about the obstacles the way, this is exactly it. All the shit that this guy went through, 20 years of addiction. It's almost that was his degree. He needed to go through that to have the impact that he's having now. I promise you will walk away from this conversation inspired to do something. And if you guys want to try out this CoH beverage, well, hot damn, use the promo code capital COH 25 and get 25% off your first order. And I'm warning you guys now, there is not much intro on this one. Wes and I jump right in. You know, I always have a short conversation with the guests, maybe say 2 to 3 minutes before I hit record. It helps give me a glimpse of what they're like in conversation. Maybe, I don't even know if it makes a difference, but I try and tailor the way I ask questions or whatever. But man, Wes and I, we had non-romantic chemistry. I mean, like from the time we jumped on, I could just tell we were like-minded in a lot of things. And he's an interesting dude. He brings a lot of energy. And it was just blaring out of the screen at me. I was trying to keep up with this guy. And I really enjoyed where this conversation went. And I guess I'm gonna let him do his thing. And I'm just gonna let you guys actually listen instead of talking about it. So without further ado, please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Wes Hurt. All right, everybody, I'm excited about this one. Today, we are joined by Wes from CoH. And full transparency, I had to hit record only because we were jiving before I did that. And I feel like you guys are going to miss out on some of this magic going on here. So first, Wes, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me. It's really, it's a pleasure to be on here. You know, I used to, 50% of me likes to hear myself talk and think I have bright ideas. And then the other one that's more properly guided is that this is about spreading a message of hope and trying to inspire people. And so trying to figure out how I can be of more service in that way versus how I'm perceived by people is something I'm trying to work on. But what an opening with that word. There's my qualifier.
But it's exactly. Do you question that? We're gonna go deep right from the get-go. Do you question the ego part? Because I'm only saying that because I've questioned it here. Like, I like being out in front of people. I love talking about this cause, but where do those two things? Where do they meet? And which side is driving the bus?
Yeah, no. I think it just depends what minute you ask me. who offended me in the moment, in quotes.
Yeah.
And now that I have to put on my ego hat to show them that they just don't get my vision, something just, and then there's the flip side, which is just like waking up yesterday and dropping my kid off to kindergarten. And then realizing amidst all of the turmoil of the world, anything that I chose to do in my past and where I am today, but like in that moment, it was about my boy going into kindergarten with this global chaos. But in that moment, that truth was still there. And like, I was actually present.
Yeah.
And like, that's rare for me to be able to do, or to have the blessing to do. But like, look, I mean, this is about perspective.
Yeah.
To me, it's about perspective, which we can dive into deeper. And I'm not, by the way, you just asked me, Wes, are you authentic or not, basically, or when is it and when are you not, or what's the motive and what's not? It's all. I'm an egomaniac with low self-esteem, addiction or not. I've lived that way my whole life. I want affirmation. Hey, is there a good part of that? Yes. There's something that says we're going the right way and it inspires me to keep going. Then there's the other side that is to cover up maybe some shelter, some shit in my life, or guilt or shame from the past, that if you make me feel like I'm doing something better, that starts to diminish, some of that guilt or shame, which is not necessarily accurate. It's about processing it for me, which I haven't done a lot of the stuff I should. So, I think what I do know, or what I do believe, is regardless of what I tell you, my motives are at any given time, that the human is powerful. Their instincts are powerful to sniff out authenticity or not.
Yeah.
And so instead of just saying, guys, I've arrived, I'm some sober prophet, or, I'm ready to rock and roll with perfection. No, I'm a beautiful mess of a man. And I say that and not to come up with something that sounded cool. I mean that. Like, my life is beautiful, a beautiful mess. But I think it's really not that indifferent for most people who struggle with their own habits or whatever obstacles they have in their life.
Yeah, I've struggled with it. I mean, I shouldn't say struggled. I've been curious, right? So when you get on a mic and you talk about habits, and I really try to make this more about the guest. That way, it's almost like a cop out. Like, well, it's not me. But when I get on here and I talk about it, then I just never want to come across like I got my shit together. You know what I mean? Like, I can tell you
exactly, because there's also these imposter syndromes, or there's these subjects that are so sensitive that you don't want to show up righteous and then though you have the full solution or any of that. Like, no one likes that. I don't give a shit if I liked it or anything. No one likes that in other people, in my opinion. They can recognize confidence, which is different from arrogance.
Yeah.
They can see resolve versus persuasion. They can see we have a really strong ability to sniff things out. And so instead of saying that I've arrived and I'm good to go, I mean, I mix in some of the shit that is still with me just to say that, look, my life is being built as I fly it. And as we're flying, I've arrived nowhere, and I've arrived everywhere.
Right. So you've built something that is very impressive for a couple different reasons. Anyone who just starts a business and it's successful, is impressive within itself. But when you take something that was an obstacle in your life, and I know there's a million Stoic fans out there, me included, to say like, hey, the obstacle is the way.
Obstacle's the way.
Yeah, but you've literally taken something that, you had habits that could have killed you, and you've now built something that not only is a profitable business, but you've thrown out a million lifelines to other people, and you're trying to help them along the same path to recovery that you found. Am I accurate in that description?
Yeah, I mean, it also connects to what we just said about motives and things like that. When I got sober the first time, I was like, I didn't know if I had anything to offer the world because I had been inebriated for so long on opiates, all kinds of stuff. So you don't really know what is in and of yourself absent influences that are changing your biochemistry, quite frankly. So my point is like, you take that away and then you're asking yourself, what am I? It's been 20 years since I looked in the mirror without any substances. Am I a creative person, Or was I just drunk and high all the time?
Right.
Am I a person that works hard? Or was I lazy just because of that? It's like, there's like this reckoning of like your identity, or at least that was for me, of going, dude, I don't really know what I am if I take out the substances or other aspects that weren't serving me over the last 20 years and trying to figure out what is now. And that was a weird place to be in, because now you've kicked out these negative substances, but now you're sitting in a place of like open white canvas. But at least it was for me, of like, almost like that Ben Stiller, like, who am I?
Right.
Looking into the reflection.
And the scary part is you've got no more scapegoats. You can't blame it on anything else now, because now it's reality. Now it's you.
I was just talking to someone about it today. I was saying, and this is an interesting connection to this, but it speaks to the categorical scapegoat in someone who's struggling with addiction is, I struggle with addiction, to a certain extent. And I'm speaking more for myself, but I'll speak for half of the people out there just for fun, so they get upset with me. No. It makes it a little more productive. There's some friction now. You're engaged.
Right.
But the idea that now I'm blanking what I said because I'm thinking about what people are thinking about me. See, that's what happens.
You're talking about this morning to somebody when we were talking about, now you've got no one else to blame. You can't blame it on the substances anymore.
Yeah, when it's amazing when you strip all of the substances or people that you've leveraged in your life or manipulated, and they step aside and not allow you to do that. Now you're faced with like this existential question, although you wouldn't say it in yourself, like, whoa, now I don't have all of these variables that I was using. Like, to your point, it's gone and I can't point at that. So now what is what? And I tell people like, hey, I think, and I like that I can speak freely about this because I am in recovery. Whereas if you heard it from somebody who wasn't, everyone would be offended and arms up in the air.
Yeah.
And that is, like, I say certain things, like people will come to me and be like, Wes, I've done shitty things, I'm a piece of shit. I'm like, not really. I go, when you do shitty things, you are a piece of shit. I just follow them. I go, but what the flip side of that is when you stop doing shitty things, you stop being a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I'm just speaking in their lexicon. And what I really mean is like, look, man, we're all imperfect. We're all going to make mistakes. And sometimes we make a 20-year mistake, in quotes, relevant to everything else that every other people are doing, or relative, excuse me. But, like, this is our life. It's ours. We own it. And at some point, like, when do we just take responsibility for our life fully and know that, like, it's not anything anybody else is telling? It doesn't matter. You can choose to do whatever you want today.
Yeah.
It's yours. You can go drink and die. You can go do anything you want. I know that sounds weird. It's yours. And sometimes I wonder, did I look at my life really as mine versus just saying, don't tell me what to do to everybody in the world? Was I really just saying, no, this is my life. I'm saying, don't tell me what to do because I value my practices and my positive habits and my North Star and my values so much that my actions align with that with such continuity that I'm unshaken when someone challenges me. That's where I want to be.
Yeah. That's the goal, right? I talk about this idea of being compromised, that you've got this version of yourself, and then you do things, and you do it because again, going back to this stillness of not liking maybe yourself, not liking being by yourself and with sitting in between your own ears and just being uncomfortable.
Right.
And you do these things that compromise you. And
so my question would be, just I want to interrupt a half second. Why are we doing that?
Why are we getting these, looking for these
little dopamine hits? Why are we, I'm curious, why are we say it as a general statement, and I agree, we're uncomfortable in between our own ears.
Yeah.
Why?
Me personally?
It's a loaded question. Sure. I don't know if it was rhetorical or not, but to me, it speaks to kind of root cause stuff. But I interrupted you, and I'm curious if we can go back to that. It would be cool after you finish what you're going to say. I'm like, what causes what? There's correlations and there's causal relationships, and they're completely different. But go ahead. Sorry.
But that's we're actually getting to the same point, because that's it. It's trying to connect. For me, is connecting emotion with action, and then your actions with the emotions. So those things wrapped up in themselves, and trying to figure out like, hey, I did something really shitty. Well, why did you do it? Because I was hurting, and this made me feel good for like a really short period of time.
Yeah.
It made me feel alive. But the shelf life on it was really short, and now I feel even worse than when I started doing that. Like, wow, man, it's like, it seems like it should be the simplest thing in the world. Like, hey, don't do that. Don't do it, because you're going to feel like crap about yourself. But for whatever reason, it goes back to the human experience, right? We're flawed, and
I mean, I've been thinking about that for myself lately. I've had some behaviors that I'm like, dude, why am I doing that? Like, no, I'm really just trying to find for myself. Yeah. Like, no, dude, not in a meeting or in a podcast. Like, why are you doing that? Are you willing to even get gut honest with myself is what I'm asking myself. Like, seriously. I mean, that speaks to full ownership of my life, which I never had before because I was blaming people. And it doesn't mean that the two things can't be true at the same time.
Yes.
It's true that people can hurt you, and it's true that you should take full responsibility for your life, in my opinion.
Yes.
But they're not necessarily codependent or interdependent or any of that. I think when we conflate the reason for X, Y, or Z being, I think that, look, I'm gonna go a 50,000 foot view. I think there's a epidemic in terms of a misunderstanding behind what a root cause means and the difference between a correlation and a causal relationship. I'm telling you, I know it sounds so crazy, but the number of times I have conversations and I say, why? I say, why? Because I just want to drill down further. I want to go to the roots. I don't want to look at the leaves. We all know the leaves. We're talking about all of them. I'm saying, what are you watering it with? What are you watering it with? If you don't start there and you're looking at the light bulb and it's not turning on, but the thing's not even plugged in. Like, how do we look at things and undercomplicate things? Undercomplicate it by going, I don't need Sigmund Freud to tell me why I'm feeling it. I know that I was rude to someone because I was jealous of them yesterday. And that for me, and admitting and owning that is really simple, and then it's gone. I don't have to throw it in some like big bucket of like, well, I don't know, I'm just human, I'm going to be a jerk. No, let's get honest. You were jealous because of that girl he was with, or vice versa, or the way he talked to your girl, period. Right. And it's because you have insecurity, and you might not know where the insecurity came from, but you damn well know you were jealous. So own it or not, and figure out how to deal with it. And by the way, these are aspirational things for me. I'm not, like I said, this is not me. This is where I'm moving towards. So,
I mean, do you find you're good? And this doesn't mean you, this is the first time we've ever talked, but yeah. I think I'm good at seeing it. Like I can sniff my own out. Right? I can see the guy or the woman next to me that's like-minded, who probably has some of the same issues I have, and I can tell them what to do. I can read Atomic Habits 4 times, and I can tell you all about that book. But can I implement those things in my own life? That's like the crux.
And to me, I came up with this little saying for myself. And again, it's like a saying I came up with, but I don't do. But it speaks to that. Do you believe what you say you believe? Do you or do you not? Because I don't know about you, but I'm not, in quotes, judging people based on what they say all the time. I watch them because that's what we know. I tell people all the time, they're asking for business advice. I'm like, you want to differentiate? Be authentic, but not the Forbes magazine that talks about authenticity. Authenticity goes deeper than they even know, which is something that you don't have to explain to someone that you're authentic.
They feel
you don't write it. You don't know words, nothing. It's the human experience to know how all of the senses come in, the tone, the affect, the affect, the demeanor, the word choice, the all of that are all the variables that are going into this filter that then our human instincts, in my opinion, sift out and say, I already know everyone's not perfect. I'm not looking for anyone perfect because it doesn't exist. But what I'm looking for is hey, everyone has shit. Are they willing to just admit that they do? Because that is what we connect on.
That's what lowers the barriers that we put up. Before I hit record, we were talking about like, hey, how do you level the playing field? Because I'm 45. I grew up watching movies where I saw people in rooms and they was always in the dark room and it was in the basement of some church and they're handing around shitty coffee and then I was in those rooms as an adult and it wasn't that far off. Like they were kind of dead on, at least in my own experiences.
Yep.
But before we got on, we talked about that, Joe Blow who can't stop watching porn or can't get off their phone or is addicted to work or whatever it is. How do we level that playing field and say, hey, listen, you've got the exact same thing that the guy in the basement of the church has. You have the exact same thing. You are looking for a little. You want to be distracted because you don't like what's going on.
No, you're dead on. So I think that in my opinion, we have to figure out a way to speak in terms of root causes. Because again, I always use this metaphor or visualization for myself because it's the simplest for me. And I'm looking out my front window and I have a massive magnolia tree. And I'm looking at some yellow dead leaves hanging and I'm looking at some growing on the outside. But again, what are you watering it with? And so my question is when we talk about habits, good or bad, or if that's what the podcast is what habit am I doing, good or bad, is producing the leaves, either alive or dead? But stop looking at the leaves for a minute and say, what am I nurturing? What is the habit in and of itself? And saying that I am pouring Miracle Grow or oil on it. And then I'm asking why the leaves are dead. Yeah. And so to me, like, honestly, I want to undercomplicate life. And the reason I want to do that is because we're overstimulated. We already know there's COVID, all these movements, all the weather, the pandemic, like everything is screwed. It's all screwed, but it's exactly the way it's going to be. And we still don't control that other than our individual efforts, which I won't go into. But I'm just saying, yes, you're not victims to all of it. But my point is, it's like, my point is that I don't know what my point is. That's the truth. I was going somewhere, I thought, but you got lost.
Well, we haven't even covered what clean cause you. I mean, you've probably said it so many times that you're like, you're done with it. But let's talk about.
No, I'm not. I think I can do it more effectively. Quite honestly, your viewers will not have to hear like the 95-minute version. I can condense it into what matters. So I'm going to zip through this and you can stop, just interrupt me at any point and say, can you drill down a little bit deeper? Other than that, I'm just going to condense it. So my bad habit or addiction or whatever you want to call it within this, and within my life, which I could call it all things, they weren't positive though. And they resulted in dead leaves. And me asking, why are all these leaves dead? And it was 20 years ago in high school, 20 plus years ago. I'm 43 now. I started drinking, experimenting like most people do, in my opinion. But it stuck with me. And then over time, I kept using it. And I know now just to change the way I feel because I just didn't like it. And I liked the escape it allowed. And so it did its job. You hear a lot of times like alcohol and drugs worked until it didn't. Yep. And that's the truth. Yep. It did. And it's just that weird statement, but it was effective as anesthetizing my inability to want to feel my raw emotions and to even go any further to understand what they were coming from.
Right.
But and over 20 years, I lived in 8. I went to 6 rehabs, 1 psych ward. My first rehab I went to 25 years ago. And it's crazy when I think about that. 25 years ago, I went to my first rehab. Wow. And I got sober 7 years ago. I celebrated 7 years a few weeks ago, and 7 years. And I'm like, what the heck? But right before I got sober is when it really crescendoed, which is maybe typically a good comment or something. I don't know. I'm not that great at vocabulary, but it's when it hit its peak, if you will, of my addiction and kind of my reckoning, which was I'd switched to opiates. And within 2 years of getting sober, 2 years before getting sober, I started popping a couple pills a day. And by the end, I was popping 30 to 35 a day. I was smoking crack. I was drinking. I got kicked out of the house. I was fired from my business. Everybody in my life, which I spoke to about individuals that I could leverage or manipulate. I only needed one person I could find. Mm-hmm. And if I could get them in my corner in any way, then I could rationalize and justify my use just because they were so unfair or whatever it was. But when we stripped all of that away, I was sitting there by myself, with myself, no one else around. And that's why I speak also about ownership of our own lives, because it was the first time that I can dream of excuses to blame people all day, but the substantive ones had been removed and I knew it was categorical. And what happened was I found myself saying, dude, I'm going to die. And it was the first time in my life after 20 years of use that I actually believed I was going to die. I never believed that before one time. Yeah. I was just living life, living la vida loca, rocking and rolling and doing what we do. But that brought me to that moment of saying, hey, I was living in a warehouse. I'd been kicked out of my house. I was living in a warehouse office with another homeless guy. He was a crack addict and we had that bond. I hung out in the cemetery every single day for 9 months and wanting to commit suicide and not knowing how I could do it and ensure that it would be done and I wouldn't be just alive. And then also for me, it was asking the God that I believe in to give me a sign to say it was okay. Because I just didn't want to be here anymore, but I didn't get the green light on that. And, but I also wasn't inspired about recovery. I was kind of in this existential angst, this limbo of not wanting to live or die. But, through a lot of different circumstances and things, some that I would claim supernatural, got on the road to recovery, had a moment of clarity, if you will, just to make them do the next right thing enough times in a row to get the momentum to stay on the wagon. And I say in the traditional sense, stay on the wagon, but just keep going the right direction. Yeah. And so, that all created my story, if you will, this chaos of 20 years of drugs and alcohol and not the inability to communicate with people in a productive way to produce like meaningful relationships, no understanding of intimacy, which I still struggle with big time, like massively. What that looks like, what is unselfish love, what is love? Like, I'm still there. Like, what is love? Admittedly, when you get in recovery, to me, we've talked about it. I call addiction my flavor of affliction, but we all struggle with one. And that's that human condition. We all have a battle. We all have things up against us, but, I'm so grateful for mine because, something my whole life I've been searching for, and I didn't articulate it this way when I was younger because it's a little more sophisticated thinking, but this idea of purpose and why, and constantly wondering why, what's the purpose? What's the meaning? What am I supposed to do? Why? Like, I don't get anything. And I don't know why that I don't know why that spirit of questioning was always in my spirit, but it was. And I guess what I'm getting to is that my addiction and my bad habits and all the whatever you want to led me to my freedom and having awareness at one point to say, oh crap, I would never design my life in a way that I would have to almost lose it to find it. No one would. And so it's kind of surreal because it still feels just weird. I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. I've always loved to be one. I always wanted to reach the masses with something. I didn't know what it was, but no way did I think that my story was going to be part of an entrepreneurial venture that was born of just such destruction. And so
I'm going to jump in there just because when you take 20 years out of your life and you're not present for 20 years, yep. that is, to me, I imagine the arrested development that goes along with that is massive. So you got a short window to try and get your shit together and when I say shit together, I mean, unpack the why I did these things. And you can uncomplicate it all you want, but there's still a lot of just, this emotional awareness is
it's hard as hell.
It's a big leap.
I mean, so just to be honest for your viewers and let them know where I'm at in my life right now. It's like, I just went through a divorce over the last 18 months. And, again, you don't get sober to get divorced, but you also start to realize after you remove the substances and you start to dive deeper and peel back the layers of the onions that like we said, that's just a little component of your life.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I don't have an addiction problem. I have a living one.
Mm.
And someone said that recently and I was like, oh, damn.
That's deep.
I was like, I don't have a bad habits problem. I have identifying the good ones problem or whatever, however you would. But when they said that, it hit me differently. It speaks to this idea of not running from our habits. It's running bad habits. It's running towards better ones. It's not from, it's to. It's not dark, it's light. If you constantly point of relativity is how bad and shameful and all that I am, and then that became part of my martyrism or people to know how self-aware I am because I'm such a piece of shit, which is what I did at the beginning. and I got a lot of cheer. People get sick of that after a certain point of time. You're allowed to do that for a little bit. And then the rest of it needs to be redemption, come back, next right thing, move your feet and stop being pity party, So I've lived in all of these spaces in 7 years of jailhouse Jesus to like, woo, to AA, to freaking ayahuasca. I didn't take ayahuasca, but I'm saying, hey, I'm just looking at these ideas of like, I've gone all over the place because of what you said, 20 years. If you really, really think about it, and then you even go look at the science of developmental times that happened. Yeah, I was a full-blown arrested. Development. I still listen to Coolio, Gangster's Paradise.
Right.
That's from the 90s, and that's when I started doing drugs. No joke. My playlist is from the 90s. It's so insane. I'm like, whoa.
It's like a time machine. It's like you woke up from a time machine. You were 20 years older, and now you got to figure stuff out.
And it's not everybody else's responsibility. It's mine to also be able to identify what you just said so I can put it into context that says, hey, dude, you have a long road back in theory for everyone else, the way that they see life. But your victories and exponential gains happen daily because it's such contrast to the way you've lived. And we distill all that down to say, at the end of the day, we all have life only. We just have life and it's not given. So that's why I kind of talked. I'm saying a lot of different things, but it's speaking to perspective and an honest assessment of the people around you to understand, like, dude, they've been living life. They've been living life with their own struggles and their own things. They have their own. You're not unique, Wes, in that sense. So how do you show up after you're saying, now I'm showing up, like you say, in the human condition, which is something we can relate to regardless of what your habit or addiction is. It's just, we're trying to figure things out.
That whole thing of not being unique, I mean, that's something that needs to be reminded to everyone a lot because we get wrapped up in our own story and we go, no, you're different. You're different. See, I have this problem and the only other people that would get me are this little group of people.
You don't get me.
Yeah, right.
Oh, shit.
But you're not.
Like, what a loaded comment. I mean,
right.
You categorically don't get me. It's like, okay. Well, I get that you have blood in your body. Can we start there? And a heart that pumps blood through you? Where can we start with the similarities? Okay.
Yeah. When you break it down and you talk about to making things less complicated, you do this because you don't like yourself or you don't like it. And then these people do the same thing. We're not that fucking different.
We're not. We are so much similar than any of us ever really want to know or admit in a society that is trying to celebrate individualism to the point where you get more followers on Instagram. Like if the KPI for value and uniqueness is the number of likes you have, then cool, that is that world. But dude, you know, like, and I hate to say it like this, but like Kobe Bryant, I just got to bring this up. When Kobe Bryant died, it hit me differently than most. I'm not even a huge basketball fan, and I don't particularly love Kobe Bryant as a player. I know he's awesome, and I know he's won I know all of that.
Yeah.
But what I think that did for America in a very provocative way and the world was to say, yo, Kobe Bryant had everything. And guess what? He's gone. And that's so sad. And his daughter is, but he's gone. He does not have tomorrow to do the next right thing. Who gives a shit about your judgment about him, his marriage and all stuff? That guy, his life was unreal. And the challenges he had to face, we could never relate to in that sense. But we can relate to just, you know, the challenges. My point of bringing that up is that when a Superman was taken who had everything, it level set me to realize, whoa, it is only life. That is the only thing of all of the other stuff, of every other thing that we can talk about, is that you and I are not guaranteed to even live the rest of today. And that speaks a little bit to your obstacles, the way in Stoicism about the idea of how acutely aware you are of the frailty of life so that you can appreciate and live it that much more fully. You know,
I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and it was actually my dad. He's getting up there, and you know, he's talking about like your stages of life and this being towards the end. And sure, I mean, statistically, you're probably right, but it could all end. I mean, you know, it could all end. We could be on this podcast this very second, right? And it's all over. You don't know.
Which also speaks to, you know, it also speaks to like, you know, people said this before, and it's typically like I don't know when people say this. You can help me out, but you know, you've heard this where they say, how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah.
You know, you'll say like, what is your legacy? And it's like, if you were asked that question on a daily basis and you had to answer it each morning, would your activities that day be different than if you didn't ask that question? I think the answer is yes. 100%. Because, you know, I look at like other simple things like Christmas morning. Do people treat people better on Christmas morning when they're out and about? You're damn right they do. Everybody does. I open more doors. I say more thank yous. I give more to homeless people. Why aren't we doing that daily? What happened on Christmas to make us think that that's the day that we act? And I'm saying I'm asshole. Day after Christmas, I'll wreck you on the highway. I'm like, why are you cutting me off with all this fresh gratitude? Why don't we act like it's Thanksgiving or Christmas every day? I don't know what the answer is. But the question I do have is, if we acted as though someone asked us, how do you want to be remembered? And what you do today will be the only thing that people get to see. How would you act? Dude, I would act totally differently. Yeah. Or a lot differently. I don't know how productive that is really, or I mean, here's why I mean that. How many YOLOs have you heard? Do people really live like YOLO's real?
I'm going to say no, 100%.
No, we don't, because it would change what we did today after this podcast. If I really believe that with every freaking ounce of me, which I do, but if I actually had that value or belief and I belived it, like we talked about, dude, that's the compass. It is. If you can figure that out and go, dude, we're not guaranteed anything at all. Why can't we just on that simple reality and not let it become desensitized to go, yeah, I know that, and walk off? Yeah. It's like, no, it's true. So sorry, I get pumped up about that because lately I've been like even in self-pity or whatever it was over my divorce or my shame over that and my guilt about how it may affect my children down the road because I couldn't stay in a marriage and make it love and follow through with the storybook. You know, the storybook. and I'm in recovery, and I'm like, shit, maybe I'm not doing recovery right, because I couldn't even stay in a marriage with one person. I want to save the world, but couldn't figure out how to save my marriage. Like, what's up with that? That's a hard pill to swallow, and the pill being Advil. Okay, but because I used to take it. All right, but yeah, I'm all over the place a little bit right now.
No, I'm gonna redirect you. We're gonna get back onto. All right, so you're in recovery. And then at some point, this idea of what ends up becoming.
Oh, cool. So yeah, thanks for reeling me back in. So you get sober. I don't know if I have anything. I basically just don't know what I'm made of. I'm a vehicle sitting there, and I don't know if I have a six cylinder, 8 cylinder, if I have lights or not. I just don't know. So I'm sitting there, and then I had this inspiration, man. I just did that. I said, I'm going to use my story, man. I'm going to use something that is so offensive to me right now in the moment, and so guilt-driven and shame-driven. I'm going to flip the script. And I don't know how that's going to work necessarily, but I'm going to give half the profits away from some company to drive recovery and to support that. And that's how it started. I literally had this feeling, and then all of a sudden I got like a flicker in my belly or wherever that comes from, and I knew, man. I knew right away. And I go, oh crap, this is it. And I go, just go. So I walk out of this meeting. I get in the car. I was in a 12-step meeting. And I call my sister and I go, Meredith, I have an idea. I'm going to launch a company, and I'm going to get 50% of the profits away to support people in recovery. And it's going to be called Sober. And she goes, oh, she goes, I love the idea, but the name, she goes, I don't really want to carry something called Sober. Everyone's going to think I'm an alcoholic. And she goes, how about clean? And I'm sitting there, and the reason I'm telling you this story is because of how quickly it all evolved. And so I'm sitting there in a 12-step meeting. I think of the 50% using my story. I get in the car and I'm driving home. I call her and tell her it's sober. She says she's not, and she says clean. Then I'm driving home and I'm like, yeah, but we have a cause. It just doesn't feel complete. And then I'm sitting there driving and clean cause, dude. That's it. The C's hit, And I was like, clean cause. That's it. And so now they know, and it's a double entendre. What will our product be? And then before I got home, I settled on water. And part of the thinking was, look, everybody needs water and they don't like it dirty. And so I'm like, and I'm pretty sure I can get water in a bottle with a label on it. And within a couple of months, we had 40 cases of bottled water in my garage, and I was selling it out of the back of my truck door to door. And that's where it started, man. And it just went. And I look back, it doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying I'm so brilliant or anything. It just kept coming, this stream of consciousness. And it was like the next right thing that I was just willing to listen to. And I said, fine, let's go. Fine, let's go. How does 50% shake out when you tell investors you want to give half the money back that they're investing to make? That doesn't sit well.
Imagine not.
It doesn't work.
Not only that, you're telling them, listen, 50% of these margins, right? Like 50% is gone. What's your background in business? Oh, I don't have one because for the past 20 years I've had this substance misuse problem. But I would love to work with your money.
Yeah. Hey, exactly. Hey, I just got sober. I've got an idea to give away half your money. Oh, I'm going to sell water, the most competitive commodity there is in CPG. You want in? Sure. No, thank you. No, thank you. So, but that's how we started, man. And then, yeah, we just started hustling. And then, I've got a lot of gratitude to Austin, Texas, super dope city that people were willing to lean in and say, hey, we're willing to give you a shot, whatever that meant. Like, we'll try this. And then in the sense of retailers giving it a shot to bring it in. And then, go ahead.
Yeah, there's only a couple towns I think this works. And I could be wrong. I mean, and my opinion means nothing. But you're in a town where they are so open-minded to unique things and willing to give it a shot that I think that the planets were aligned right to make something like this kind of come to fruition.
Bingo. The environmental factors were beneficial. There's no question. They maximized our chances of pulling off something crazy like this. And so I have massive gratitude to Austin. Because they received it and then they started supporting it. And even without, even with them knowing that we were building this as we were flying it, because we don't know all the answers. But
at what point are you like, oh shit, this is real? And this is like, at what point was there buy-in from people that you knew you were maybe in over your head? Like I've just sold an idea to people that are supposed to know better. And so this thing is real.
Well, if you want me to get gut honest with you, imagine if I relapse.
Oh, dude.
I mean,
I get it.
I want to, blow my head off.
I get it.
But it's also like, but I'm not perfect. But I'm not saying that so I can use again. I'm just saying that because it's a real. And I didn't realize, I guess. I don't know, man. I've carried a heavy burden that I chose to put on myself, and the expectations that I think people might have of me, although they're not even thinking about me. They're thinking about their own lives.
Yeah.
My point is you internalize all of this, and then I started realizing, you know what? My in over the head was not that the business wasn't going to work. I know it will work because we're speaking to the human spirit, and you can't engineer that. And if the cause is good and the impact's real and the preservation of the integrity of the give back is there, it's not going to stop. I can't stop that. I'm smaller than that.
It's bigger than you know.
Yes. But what I did was, and it took me to some dark places of going, fuck, am I a fraud or am I this? Or if I'm jerking off or if I'm doing the things that I would do, I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I've kind of orchestrated like the worst thing for myself and the most beautiful thing. But
I think that authenticity of even saying that stuff, I think mitigates a lot of that. The fact that you're even vocalizing that, because I think people would get that. Because once you put yourself out there, because it's vulnerability. Hey, I'm starting this business. This is what we're doing. This is what the background I had. There's no guarantee that those same things that haunted me will not haunt me again.
Hey, what if I make a ton of money off of this? I've never had a ton of money. How will I behave with a ton of money in a society that celebrates the rich, the successful, all of that? Would I change?
Yeah.
Will my heart of giving change? Will all of that? I don't know.
None of us do, right?
And I want to say it won't, but look, I'm starting to talk to celebrities and shit now all the time. And I don't want to kiss their ass, but they're a celebrity and your society has told you X, Y, or Z. And I'm like, I'm cautious. I'm scared about those things now.
Do you ever worry about, you have skills in, and I got to be careful on this. This isn't you. I'm not talking about you.
No, it's fine. I don't care.
Anyone who's in substance misuse has skills in manipulation,
yep.
in packaging things that may not be real,
yep.
Convincing people of one thing, knowing the opposite. And would money and fame bring those things out? And these are questions I'm asking myself.
It's so difficult because you don't want to share that with the people you love.
Yes.
Because the reality is the reason I want to talk about it is not because I'm setting up a provision to do it. I'm trying to have an honest conversation about the reality, the statistical realities, the societal influences that people, if I told them, I'm like, look, if you won the lottery today, you're going to tell me what you're going to do with it. But that's not what you're going to do.
Yeah, right.
And I go, and I can guarantee you that because we can go look at every person who has won watch what almost all of them lose everything.
Yeah. It's a predictable behavior.
Exactly. And so I'm scared. Yeah, man. I don't know what's going to happen. My life's so good, but So I don't know, man. And you know what? I look at this stuff and it's like, I'm a capitalist and I've leveraged recovery and addiction. I say that I'm leveraging it. You know what? I sell caffeine, an addictive substance, and I'm trying to get you to switch from another addictive substance to mine. And what I tell people is, you're damn right. We're going to fight fire with fire. And I believe that. And the reason I say that is because you have to create a ton of money if you want to hire the brightest minds, in my opinion, to go after this with everything you have. You have to have the resources. Why are there not the greatest minds in philanthropic spaces?
Because they
made money.
Yeah.
they're capitalists, or they're incentivized. Why doesn't government work? Because it's not incentivized. That's my opinion and not a political leaning. It's just an extrapolation from business and what I've seen. And I'm like, look, if you're not asked to do anything or not rewarded or whatever, you don't do anything. But yeah, so I've definitely, and I've been open about that though, dude, and that's been freeing. Because they'll go, well, you're getting people, or they'll say, hey, Wes, you use clean, and I've had moms who've lost their sons or daughters email me and say, essentially, screw you. And they're like, the fact that you use clean as though that spoke to the spirit of who my son was and that he died dirty, fuck you. And I'm like, that's not anything I ever anticipated coming. And I've gotten it several times, and I'm like, oh, wow. The reality is if I'm being honest, how did it affect them regardless of how I wanted it to be? And where the spirit in me has changed over the last couple of years is to invite them in versus to defend. And that is to say, hey, how do you see it? And then you're going to give me the opportunity to say, wow, there's the possibility that other people see it that way. And I want to recognize that as being real. Then I also want to reiterate where I am. Now, if you want to keep debating after that, I won't do it. I'll say goodbye. But will I give you the opportunity to share something that could be more broadly representative point of view, so that they understand that that's not what our position is? And then absolutely.
Yeah. I guess you got to distinguish whether that person is just in so much pain, they're just trying to lash out, compared to somebody who's just truly finds offense in something.
I know, dude. And words are powerful.
Yeah.
But if you told me, Wes, do you know that scientifically the word, if it's a 5-letter word and it happens to be clean, that something happens in your brain to where someone then, if someone's showing me those things or trying to tell me those things or try to educate me on them, I need that.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why we're bringing in subject matter experts now, as we really start to scale, to galvanize our give back, to galvanize the integrity of the words we use, to galvanize the invitation and the spirit of what we want, which is agnostic, open, inclusive. That doesn't mean all of my beliefs are, but that's not the space for the Clean Cause platform. Clean Cause is a platform where it all can exist, but I will bring my own opinions when asked off the record or on the record, depending on if it does the greatest good. Because I'm trying to subscribe or to follow the Hippocratic Oath. Just do no harm, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just do no harm.
Yeah, it's got to be a weird transition to go from something that is Wes Hurt. He's got this product to it's now become bigger than you. So not all of my views belong in here. It's bigger.
No, exactly. Yep.
If asked, I'll give them, as long as it's not going to diminish or compromise what we're doing. But
people will say, "Are you a Democrat or a Republican, Wes? Do you believe in abortion or not? Did you vote for Trump or not? Or did you vote for Biden?" I get it all, and people want me to put a stake in the ground.
Yeah.
And the problem is, I said I will not allow that to happen to compromise the good in the apolitical, the open, the inclusive, the agnostic platform that we have created so that people can find their own truths more clearly. And so maybe there's a bait and switch in it. Don't care. I don't know. I mean, it's not an ulterior motive I can explicitly share with you, but I'm just saying, hey, I have my own views. Yes. I'm a capitalist. That's why I did 50% and not 100%. But I'm also a capitalist to understand that you can use something that is seen on the outside as bad for good. Yeah. And now you can have your cake clean and drink it too. And so guess what? That is my formula. And you know what? I hope American businesses subscribe to this and pick it up and understand that not only you can make more money by giving it away. That's what people don't realize. You want to differentiate in society? You want to? Go back to the things and do the things we all say we want to be. Just do them and watch what happens. It's radical. And I don't do it all the time, but when I do, it's insane because it is undeniable to the other person that value is what you're willing to put out of your mouth and then stand next to. So they believe you no matter what if they agree with you. And that is huge.
That's what I actually want to get into is that, we talk about impact investments, and that's a hot topic, right? Or a hot term. You hear it a lot.
ESG and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I, and I always make sure I'm not You probably sympathize with this, maybe not, but this whole thing of saying something and making sure you don't come across as a fraud, at least in your own mind, in this echo chamber here, but of doing something greater than you or bigger than you, and what that does for you personally, right? We've spent so much time chipping away at this, at our own sense of self-worth. So for 20 years, you're doing something that's compromised. I've got my 20 years of doing something that, I was a slave to. And now I do something that I in my own mind, I perceive as bigger and greater than me. And there's a very selfish thing because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good about myself.
See, I'm a fan of the proper amount of feel good for yourself. I am.
Yeah.
Because if you come from it from a purely fundamentalist standpoint, there's no space for celebration. There's no space for fallibility. There's no space for grace. There's no space for human. That's what it is. It's just human.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know. God, what the hell was my even point?
No, but you were saying selfish, and so look. Do I feel good, or does it? There's times where I feel kind of almost manic from head to toe from the possibilities, because I think some crazy shit. Some people will say to me like, "Dude, you're probably going to be famous," and I'll say this. I'll be like, "Nah," but I'm like, oh shit, am I going to be famous?
All right, this very well could happen.
And I'm like, I'm not saying I want to be. There's a part of me that's the sick part that says, sure. But then I'm like, I already know what that does because I've seen it a million times and the people are miserable who are famous, most of them, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, but now why is that even thought coming into my mind? And then I'm like, whoa, shit. So it's like, it's just next level of runaway stuff. And that's why I'm like, I don't get dressed up for meetings. I don't show up differently. I just come the way I am. And people will tell me like, hey, you're this. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what I am. I just want to keep going. And I'm trying not to change that much other than to something that's better version of me. Like, that's my goal. I don't know how else to say it. I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm really excited. I just found out literally, right 5 minutes before we got on the phone, that a massive celebrity is coming on board with Clean in a very authentic way. Like, it's going to be huge. And I can't even believe it. I'm like, oh God. And I can because we've been working on it, but the final answer came 5 minutes before. Dude. And this person is not doing it for the money. And when it comes out in the news, it's going to just go, boom. But I'm like, damn, this thing is so much bigger than me. And I'll tell you one thing that really hit me, and this is for anybody involved in their own stuff, and for you even, for all of us to say, the cause that you're fighting for or that you're supporting is bigger than you, and it deserves more than you. When my investor said, Wes, the cause deserves it, he just took me out and I go, wait, what about me? Oh, wait, you said the cause. And something happened in my brain where it took me from being me and everybody else is watching me to going, oh, okay, so there's this cause here. I'm not fully in the herd because I do like to be unique, but I'm now looking at this thing going, dude, the cause does deserve the best. If we give a shit about the people that are struggling out there, and what happens when our lives are redeemed and you have a chance to fully engage in life and in relationships and those small things of holding your kids or dropping them off to kindergarten that you could have never fathomed of how important they would be because you would think a 1 week bender might be better. No. It's being present there in those moments and feeling that is unfreaking believable. Why do we have amnesia and forget about it 10 minutes later? I don't know.
That's right. But somebody just said to me, my rememberer is broken and just got in recovery.
But to go full circle and then just to ask you, how you see habits playing a role in the sense of typically when I hear habits, I'm typically hear it as bad. I don't know why. It sounds like bad habits. I know habits can be good. I think of those as almost disciplines for some reason. I don't know why a habit's bad, but I guess my question would be for you, what habits do you do that you think, because I'm curious, I really am, what habits do you do that are good habits now that you think, if you had your top two, that contribute to the foundation of your life? I know that's a weird question.
No. It's not, because I host this thing. We have a nonprofit under the same name, and I ask myself the exact same question. So
I know.
I would say there's two things, and one of them, there's one I do for myself, and then there's one I do for other people. And I will say that the way I even got into a 12-step program is I've been questioning alcohol and my proponents to use it for an everyday thing for a long time, and I knew it was compromising a bunch of shit in my life. So there was a guy, I go to a rock climbing gym a lot, right? And there was a guy that goes to this climbing gym, and he, like I said, I can smell my own. I can tell people, I can see it. And I was saying to my wife, I'm like, man, I got this feeling like doesn't drink, right? And I ended up saying something to him. I said, hey, he was working out a bunch, and he's older. He's older than me. And I said, hey man, I'm trying to work out some more. And I'm going to try and stop drinking. I said, hey, do you drink? And he says, no, I'm sober. I've been sober for 14 years. And he, I kind of lit up. I'm like, that's great. It's so cool. How did you do it? That's the question, right? How did you do it?
Yeah.
And he explains it. Doesn't go into a whole lot of depth. But from that day on, that was 2.5 years ago, 5 to 6 days a week, I get a text every single morning from this guy. Sometimes 4:30 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, maybe 6. And dude, I'll get teary-eyed even talking about it. Like to have somebody that gave a shit enough to do that every single day, right? So yeah. I try and do that.
Wait, what does he text you?
It's usually a passage from like the big book, or it could just be words of wisdom, or it's just something to start your day.
Dude, 7 months ago, so yesterday I got a text from somebody who's been texting me weekly. 7 months ago, he was strung out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And we ended up, God had it organized that I was supposed to work with him and figure this out. And we some stuff happened in a really great way very quickly.
Yeah.
And this guy I'm 7 years, he's 7 months, and he's feeding my spirit on a daily basis when I'm off, because he sends me a gratitude list.
That's great.
Because it's so fresh for him. So this morning I looked down and I almost got annoyed when he started it. Cause I'm like, dude, you just got sober. Chill out.
Who are you?
Stop telling me what to be grateful for. You're you asshole. Why am I not on this list?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
like all of that shit. And I still have some resentment, I guess, clearly, because I've never been on a fucking list. I'm like, what? You wouldn't be doing this list. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But that's the part that it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens. It's constant. But the coolest part, and to your point, is the gift of me not realizing he's getting me back on track and helping me. I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I try, I do it probably 4 days a week, where I like Stoicism. So maybe I'll read like the Daily Stoic, and I'll read a couple pages of it, and I will send that, and it start off, one person just going back to the same guy. And now it's that list is grown. And no matter what happens, I sometimes I'm not even into it at all. Like I'm literally just going through the motions. Like I feel like crap. Let me just, okay, this one's good. I took a picture. I sent it off to 5 people, but at least I did something. And so that's one. And
it sounds like you did it consistently. It's about the consistency regardless of the amount of buy-in in that particular moment.
Yes. Or the reaction from the people, when I first started doing it, I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I took time to send that and I got nothing. It doesn't.
Oh God. Yeah.
But I'm happy to say I'm past that. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter if that phone line had been.
Teach me your ways on that one day, Sensei, because I'm the young grasshopper that's still like, what the hell? It's been 10 minutes and I have 2 likes.
Oh, no. That's a whole other can of worms. that we can get into that, where, I think we're cut out of the same piece of wood when it comes to that. But
it's horrible.
And then the other one, so if I do, if it sounds cliche, but if I got some breath work thing I do, and when I do it, I feel good, right? It's not that instantaneous. And I think this is the tricky part about habits. The bad ones, you feel good like that, and you feel good. The ones that are the good habits, it's that return on life investment shirt you got on. It's that, and for anyone listening, Wes is wearing a shirt. It's got ROLI, and it's return on life investment. So that takes much longer time. But the fruits of that are, they're a lot better than the fruits you're going to get from drinking and smoking crack.
Dude, you undercomplicated it from a formula standpoint. Like you really did. You're saying, look, bad habit, quick fix, longer term joy that we all want. Although when we hear longer term, that makes it feel as though it couldn't be good. Like you're like, what are you talking? It's like, because we want Christmas today.
Yeah.
That's crazy though, but keep going. Yeah. Sorry.
No. And it's a confidence. See, I think I continue to lack confidence, and a confidence that comes from doing these little things that don't have a quick return over time. It's like compound interest. It's like that person that just goes to they say they post something and they don't look at it for the next 5 weeks to see what type of interaction it got. Well, that person has a sense of confidence that it's like, it's so fucking foreign to me. But I love
me too, dude. I've tried that.
Right.
I'm back 20 minutes later.
Oh yeah. Compromising myself because my ego or lack of confidence needs that validation. But,
it's so crazy.
Yeah,
dude.
dude, we're nuts.
Yeah, we're a little bit nuts, and we're not because we talk about being a little nuts.
Yes. Yeah, everyone else is. They're just
now we're complaining. Now we're going to tell you how much better we are because of how much crazier we are and how much aware we are crazy than you are. That's why we're better.
That's right. We're better because we'll talk about it. You won't, you sheep. You sheep.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
But oh man, I can go on forever. But I'm gonna let you do your thing, man. And man, I could sit around and talk about this shit literally all day long. I love these conversations.
Yeah, me too. Just to bring it home on the business, but to know that like all of these conversations, and I'll probably get in trouble that I didn't deliver the way I was supposed to on this podcast in terms of like the cadence of talking about my story, then the product, and then all the impact, and then where to buy it. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm not doing that. I'm not. I want to optimize the message to the masses, but not to the point to where I feel the inauthenticity that I've felt most of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my head and heart aren't aligned, and I can't do it.
Well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in the intro, and I'm going to do it on the way out and in the show notes.
Oh, I didn't say I wasn't going to do it.
Oh, good.
Oh, see, that's part of the entrepreneur in me that says, hey, there it is. This is the way I want to be. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to be.
Okay.
I need to see how many likes, or I need to tell you that I did fold your laundry without you knowing. Okay? You need to know that I did, and I took my fucking time. I hate folding laundry.
Right.
No, so Clean Cause, we're sparkling yerba mate. I like to say we're better caffeine. That is our product. We're sold in 15,000 locations across the country. We are, you can buy it online, obviously, on cleancause.com or at Amazon. And, if you don't drink caffeine, don't buy it and just send us some good vibes. I mean, at the end of the day, again, I just want to reiterate, Clean Cause and Wes, we're not the solution. But we're going to be part of one.
Yeah.
So raise a can of clean. If you can cheers to that, even if you're not going to drink it. But, we do have a can with a plan. We have the right people. The hearts are aligned. And to me, we can only screw this up by compromising the integrity of the give back, because Wes will screw up. and you will screw up, and everybody on this listening will screw up. What are the things that are non-negotiable because they affect too many other people? And for me, it's one of those. It's our give back. It's that I want people to know that like we're doing what we say we're doing. And when they buy that, we have a commitment to follow through with, and we are. And we will continue to do that. And no, we're not perfect, but we're going to let you know when we screw up, and we'll make it right as quick as possible. And if they're allowing us to have just that little piece of grace to know that we're not perfect, but we're moving towards wanting the greatest solution, whatever that is, then join us and then be that way with us. It's okay. You're not going to be perfect, and we're okay with that. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here. And all of the conversation is always helpful, but also just to spread your message, my message. Mine has to be specific about addiction, but it's just mine. Again, we're all struggling with something. And so whatever I was able to share that could be helpful to people out there, I hope there was some stuff. So,
dude, it's, you talk about being authentic and knowing if somebody's being authentic, and everything about that is 100%. So I love it. I love the idea of what you're doing. I love that it came to fruition, because it's these crazy ideas that you think, that's not going to work. And when it actually comes through, it shows everybody else like, dude, anything's possible. Like,
you know what it will do too, is it will vindicate your spirit. And what happens is that when you remove and just say, hey, this isn't about everyone else. This is about ownership of my life and my own values that I'm saying I believe. What if I actually made my decisions based on those values and I did not compromise? And then you say, but I won't get X, Y, or Z what I want. And what happens is you do. You do, because the joy you have by investing in something that takes a little longer, that has a little longer return on your life, is the one that feels and gives like beyond belief. It's unreal. Like, my life is unreal. Again, I'm a person in recovery from alcohol and drug addiction, and we only have one stinking life, and I've been an opportunity to use my story for good. And I just hope that you asked, how do you want to be remembered, or you didn't ask that. I said that's a question I asked myself. It's a hard one, and to me, my big one is these two dudes right here, my two boys, that they will not be ashamed that whatever I did in my life that was in quotes bad, but we'll celebrate and be proud of what I did to bounce back. And, and that they will extend that to other people, and that grace,
I've said it on here a ton of times, that if there's a lesson, it's that your kids can look at you and know all of the bad stuff. But the power in that is knowing that there's an alternative. Because for most people, statistics will show that once they're in that position, that's it, man. That is it. And when people realize that it's not a death sentence, that there is an alternative way of living, and there's a path to get there. And this is an exciting time, I think, in the world of recovery. You may not hear about it on the news, because you're going to only hear about the people that are dying, and that is a real thing. But there's doors opening up in the world of recovery that are really, I think we're
unprecedented times. No question that. I think you're dead on. The desire and need for purpose or peace or whatever we want to call it has never been so in our faces, and that's something I think we all are willing to say the purpose word without having to say the Bible.
Yes.
Like going, no, guys, we really are getting a line that this is way bigger than a 401k and a house in the mountains and a vacation every spring break with our kids. Wait a minute, what the hell's going on here?
Yes.
So it's exciting. It's unfortunate, as we both know, in terms of the timing of everything that's happened. I would never wish that. But, that cliche or that adage, it is darkest before the freaking dawn. Yeah. And if you want to feel the highs of life when you've been the lowest, that's how it's done, because the contrast, the distance is so much greater. So I like to tell people in recovery, dude, you've been given a gift to feel life to like this insane level. And it's like, and you were chosen, in quotes, to be someone who went through shit to experience the fruit of life that much greater. And I know people who are non-addicts go on, you're just spinning up some bullshit. Hey, that's fine. But for me, I know it's absolutely real, because I know how all my other normie friends live, and they have good lives. But I can tell you, it's more of a line that's just straight. And there's the frequency is not that great. I want to feel life though too. I want to feel the joys and the pains, but only able to at that degree because of the pains that we went through and got. And anybody gets to experience that, because we all have shit. And I'm grateful for mine, that it was so pronounced and happened in a way that didn't enable me to drift by and blend in for the rest of my life without having the opportunity to like dig deeper on these bigger questions that we're forced to ask and forced to answer, considering the nature of our habit. And so, dude, it's not happy horseshit when I say that. I'm super grateful because I get to wake up every day like full of purpose in a purposeless, world that many people feel. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. You have the greatest gift if you can find purpose.
Yeah, I had a guy on here, and he's become a good friend of mine, and he's everything he's pushing, and it's something I've adopted within the nonprofit. Is it's connection, it's purpose, and it's challenge. If you have those three things, you're connected, you have a purpose, and you have something that's challenging you, that's bringing out that something in you. Well, dude, that's why we're here. That's what we're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Let's. I hope we collaboratively have helped inspire people to really look for that purpose. And one thing I like to say about purpose, just one thing, it's interesting, and about addiction in particular, or bad habits. You're like, well, I don't know what recovery looks like, or I don't know what good habits look like. Well, and I don't know what my purpose is. Well, I'll say this. You know what addiction looks like. You know what bad decisions look like. And you do know things that are not your purpose.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of that. So by default, just don't do those things as you walk through. And by default, in the process of elimination, you are closer to your calling, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Start there, undercomplicated. Just don't do the things you know you're not supposed to do, instead of sitting there explaining and complaining how you don't understand your purpose. Well, you're going closer when you're not doing the things you're not supposed to do, and we're all aligned on that. That's it. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Wes. I'm looking forward to maybe us chatting again. I'll hit you up. I'm out in Austin sometimes, man. I'll definitely for sure hit you up.
Okay, cool. Well, hey, one thing I'd like to, and you can nix this from the thing if you don't want to, if you want to be selfish. No, I'm kidding. But you're like, what? You're calling me selfish? I want to extend the opportunity to your listeners to get 25% off of their first purchase.
Okay.
If they're a first-time customer online at cleancause.com, they just put in a code that will be the acronym of your show, which is COH, consequence of habit, but it's just COH, and they'll get 25% off at the checkout. And again, if you don't drink drinks, that's cool. Send us some good vibes.
It will be in there, brother.
All right.
All right, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
All right. Take care, Wes. All right. That's it for me. I'm going to go take a nap. Huge thanks to Wes Hurt from Clean Cause Beverages. This guy's got my brain spinning. That is a thought-provoking conversation. I couldn't imagine being around this guy all day long. I mean, I'm sure it'd be great. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, he's intense. He's intense and he's thought-provoking. All right. I hope you guys all have a great week. I'll catch you guys all next week.